All right, listeners, welcome back. Get ready because today we are diving deep into something I think is really cool.
Yeah.
A totally revamped battle system. It's
Yeah.
got all the things that make this kind of stuff exciting,
Yeah. Yeah.
tactics, different kinds of
Yeah.
units,
Definitely. Yeah.
and even some new commands that, oh, well, they've got me pretty hyped to try them out
Oh,
myself.
shit.
But don't worry if you're not like a total history buff or anything.
Right.
This deep dive is for anyone who likes strategy or,
Yeah.
just wants to see how games evolve.
For sure.
So picture this, okay?
Okay.
You're a general, right? Commanding your troops in a historical battle.
Uh-huh.
You've got the lay of the land. You've got your units all ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to make this work, you need to understand what kinds of units you've got under your command.
Right. So you'll have your usual suspects, of course, infantry for holding the front line archers for ranged attacks.
Right, the classics.
Exactly. But then there's a bit of a twist.
Go.
They've combined samurai and cavalry into a single samurai unit.
Interesting. So no more separating them out like in the older system.
Nope. It seems they wanted to streamline things a bit, Less micromanaging, more focus on the big picture.
I can see the logic there for sure. Makes things a bit easier to handle, especially when things get hectic.
Absolutely.
But now I'm even more curious about what I can actually do with these units.
Mm-hmm.
What are the commands? What tools do I have at my disposal?
That's where the real fun begins. So let's start with brace.
Okay.
This is your bread and butter defense.
Okay.
Think of it like a Roman legion forming a shield wall, ready to take on anything the enemy throws at them.
Right, so maximum defense. But I'm guessing that comes at a cost.
You got it. Mobility. They're not going anywhere fast while they're braced.
Makes sense. So brace is my go-to when I'm expecting a big attack and I need to hold the line.
Exactly.
But what about when I want to advance, push forward and put pressure on the enemy, but still keep a strong formation?
Well, for that, you've got advance. This isn't a wild charge. It's a controlled movement. Slow and steady, but relentless. Like a Roman legion again, but this time in testudo formation, shields locked, moving as one.
Okay, so we've got defense covered. We've got a measured advance. But at some point, you've got to go on the offensive right.
Yeah.
Unleash some real force.
You bet. That's where charge comes in.
Now, this is what I'm talking about.
But here's where things get really interesting, especially with that combined samurai unit, because you have to be specific.
So specific. How so?
Oh, do you want the samurai infantry to rush in for a brutal melee? Or do you want the cavalry to sweep around for a devastating flank?
Oh.
Or maybe even both.
Whoa. Okay, so charge isn't just a simple command. It's like a multi-tool.
Exactly. The decision of how to charge can completely change how the battle unfolds.
That adds a whole other layer of strategy.
Oh, yeah. And don't forget about your ranged units.
Right, of course.
They have open fire, simple but effective.
Raining down arrows on the enemy, breaking up their formation.
Precisely, creating openings for your other units to exploit.
Now, that document we're looking at mentioned something about units being able to perform multiple actions at the same time.
Oh, right.
How does that work? Is it like my computer when I try to do too many things at once and it just freezes?
Thankfully, no. It's a bit more sophisticated than that. As long as the commands don't contradict each other, you can do some really neat things.
Like what?
Well, imagine your archers providing covering fire with open fire, while your infantry hold a strong line with brace.
So it's like a layered defense, making the enemy's life really difficult?
Exactly. Each part working together like a well-oiled machine.
But what would be an example of contradictory order? Something that just wouldn't make sense.
Well, think about it. You can't tell a unit to brace for a defensive stand and then also tell them to charge headlong into the enemy.
Right. You can't be both a solid wall and a raging river at the same time.
Exactly.
Okay, so just to recap for our listeners, we've got these new commands: brace, advance, charge, and open fire. And the real game changer here is that you can combine them in all sorts of ways.
Exactly. As long as they make sense tactically.
Which means that players need to really think ahead, anticipate what their opponent might do, and then react accordingly.
Absolutely.
So for all of you listening out there, I want you to put yourselves in the general's shoes. Imagine you're facing a tough opponent. How would you use these commands? What kind of clever combos can you come up with to outmaneuver and outsmart your enemy?
That's the real challenge, isn't it? Because this system seems to really favor adaptability and quick thinking. So is it all about reacting to what your opponent does? Or can you still have some pre-planned strategies?
That's something to think about. And that's where we'll leave you today. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into this fascinating new battle system.
Until next time.
See you then.